Okay. So, good afternoon, dear friends, dear Poland Forum members, Professor Judy Bauman-Schwartz, Director, Finker Institute of Holocaust Research, Head of Public Diplomacy, Polish Embassy in Tel Aviv, Magda Kuka, dear guests. We are honored today to host in our meeting of Poland Forum members who their articles were published in our Poland Forum new book, Holocaust History, Holocaust Memory, Jewish Poland and Polish Jews during and after the Holocaust. The book is already being sold by Amazon. I would like to thank to all Poland Forum members who are active during all the time, and especially those who contributed to the book. Without you, it could not happen. Special thanks to Professor Judy for everything, for this amazing project and for this amazing forum. We are looking forward for future plans. I would like to invite Professor Judy to congratulate. The floor is yours.
Thank you very, very much, Leah. And now I have to thank you for all the wonderful work that you do with the Poland Forum and for being the most fabulous co-editor for the book. It has been and it is an ongoing pleasure to work with you, to be with you, to do co-productions with you, and may we continue to do it in the Poland Forum and every place else for many, many years. I also want to thank all of you who participated in the book. It is a marvelous book. I do not yet have a hard copy, none of us do, but I have seen the electronic copy, and it is a beautiful, fascinating book that really gives a picture of Jewish Poland before the war, during the war, a little bit after the war, and it continues on answering the question of what does all this mean to us? And to everybody, it means something else. And I think that we brought that very much to the fore in the book itself. So my warmest thanks to all of you for participating in the book and for being part of the forum. And as I said, it is an ongoing thing, and we will eventually have a book launch and do everything officially. But right now, what we're doing is a type of slow book launch through the meetings of the Poland Forum this year. I'm not going to take up your time because we're here to hear the lectures. I already apologize in advance because I have something medical that I have to go out for in the middle. So please forgive me that I'm going to have to leave after a while, but as long as I'm here, I want to hear. It's not enough for me to read the articles and to edit your articles. I also want to hear you speak about them. So I give the floor back to Leah and then to all of you. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Judy. Really thank you for everything and for the warm words. I would like to invite the head of public diplomacy of Polish Embassy in Israel, Magdalena Kuka, to congratulate. Please, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. You can hear me, right?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's an honor for me to participate in this meeting. Although what I want to say, I won't take long because I know we have limited time. Although the situation in Israel right now is very difficult, the times are challenging for everyone, for the whole society. It's so good. It's such a positive thing to see Polish-Israeli cooperation continuing in the field of Polish-Jewish history. It's especially important for me as a Polish diplomat here in Israel. And what we observe right now, like after the 7th of October, the rise of anti-Semitism all around the world, it's alarming and shocking. And the only solution to prevent it, to stop it, is through education, through, like raising awareness, breaking stereotypes, working together, collaborating together, learning from the past. So this is actually what you do through your research. And I'm very excited to read the book. And I'm very excited to hear the lectures today.
Thank you very much, Magda, for really being our friend. And during all the year, we have some cooperation in different projects. So we are looking forward to the future to cooperate more. So today, we have a short time, but in the short time, we will have 3 lectures. And the 3 lectures are based on articles from the book. The first lecture will deliver Dr. Krzysztof Czubaszek. Dr. Krzysztof is an independent researcher. He received his PhD in history from Catholic University of Lublin. As an independent researcher, he initiated the restoration of memory of the Jews of Łuków and carries out various projects aimed to researching and commemorating the past of the Jewish community of his hometown. Subject of lecture, Josef Bürger, the executor of the Jews in Łuków. The floor is yours, please. You are on mute, just open, yes.
Thank you so much for the invitation and presentation of myself. It's a great honor to be with you and to have an opportunity to present my presentation about Josef Bürger. I will start my presentation. Wait a minute, please. Yeah. Okay. Josef Bürger, who was he and why I decided to deal with him to write some article about him. A lot of memories, accounts, and documents concerning the Holocaust in Łuków, a county town in the Lublin region, mention Josef Bürger. Dealing with my research, I found many times short mentions about him, but nothing more. No source gave any deeper information about this horrible person, and that's why I decided to find some more information about him, because he played a ghastly role in Łuków in Holocaust in this town. So I found this information in trial files about him in German archives and collected this information and presented in my article. I think it is worth of presenting to get more information. Who was he and what happened with him, because nobody knew till now what happened with this person. So a little biographical information about him. Josef Bürger was born in 1908 in Buttenwiesen in Bavaria. In 1922-26, he worked as a locksmith in mechanical engineering factory in Augsburg, and in 1928 he joined in Bavarian Schutzpolizei in Augsburg. So he was a policeman during his pre-war service, and even during the war he was officially a policeman, but we know what horrible role the German police played during the Holocaust time. In 1939 he joined the Augsburg branch of Gestapo, and before that he joined the NSDAP party, and in 1938 he was admitted to the SS. So he obtained all various ways to be the Nazi official before the war. So when the war started, he was sent to first to Wien in Austria, then to via Ostrava to the Tatra Mountains, and stayed for some time, for a little bit of time in Zakopane, then in Yarosław in eastern southern Poland. And in November 1939, Josef Bürger arrived in Lublin, and then he was sent to the local branch of Sicherheitspolizei and Sicherheitsdienst in Łuków. But Łuków was in pre-war times, and after the war, Łuków was and is the county town. But during the war, Łuków County was cancelled and included in Radzyń County. Radzyń is a town about 30 kilometers south of Łuków. So after the liquidation of Łuków County, police station from Łuków was moved to Radzyń, and Josef Bürger also moved to Radzyń, but he dealt with Łuków matters, coming very often to Łuków to visiting local ghetto, not only Łuków ghetto, also various other ghettos in the area, like in Międzyrzec, Parczew, Kock, Wochyn, Serokomla, these small towns in Łuków region. In total, about over 500 villages and about 42 communes belonged to the Radzyń county. And as I said, Josef Bürger was a kind of supervisor of these ghettos, and especially for the ghetto in Łuków. He came there at least once or twice a month to deliver guidelines, orders to the chairman of the Judenrat and local gendarmerie. In 1941, there was a big action of gathering, stealing exactly gold and jewelry from the local ghettos.
Just a second, sorry for interrupting. The slides, we don't see the slides are moving. We don't see the slides are not moving.
Sorry, on my computer I see.
No, but we don't see. So which slide you are now? Because
wait a minute, I will check what happened.
Now this is, yes, the second slide. Okay, and
do you see changing slides
yes, now yes, but before no.
Okay, so I will show this kind of slides because I presented them in full screen option, but maybe there is some problem with this option, so I will display.
Try again.
This.
Maybe you can close and try again. Close the presentation, open again, because sometimes it's happens.
Okay, and now do you see now changing of the slides or one slide still?
One slide still.
One slide. So there is a, I think, is a permanent problem. So I will show this this kind of.
Okay.
So as I said, in 1941 there was a big action of collecting, stealing gold and jewelry in Łuków, and Josef Bürger was personally involved in that. It was first huge action, but still not mass killing, mass shooting. It started from August, September 1942. And the liquidation of the Jewish community in Łuków began on 5th of October 1942. and it was organized and supervised by officers of the Reserve Police Battalion 101 from Hamburg, supported by Gestapo men from Radzin, and small units of so-called Hiwis collected with Latvians, Ukrainians, and Josef Bürger as a Gestapo supervisor of Łuków ghetto was personally involved in this horrible action of liquidation of the Łuków ghetto. At that time, in first days of October 1942, about 7,000 Jews were transported to Treblinka, and dozens of people were killed on the spot. And in October and November, Josef Bürger was very busy, personally involved, bringing the Jews from the surrounding towns to the Łuków ghetto and organizing subsequent transport to Treblinka. And the next day, after that, of big action, so-called first action, and there was a second action. About 3,000 or even 4,000 people were sent to Treblinka, and Josef Bürger was personally involved also in that action. It is very important because after the war, during the court trial, he denied every this action, that he wasn't personally involved, and many witnesses saw him and testified what he was doing during these horrible days. So Bürger remained in Łuków almost the end of December 1942, and was involved in collecting and secure property robbed from Jews and sent it to Lublin. So we can say that he was personally responsible, not even for organizing the actions, but also for collecting, stealing all goods left by transported and killed Jews. So he played main leading role in Holocaust final liquidation of the ghetto in Łuków. His further career in German Nazi units, Nazi police, was as follows. From May to July 1943, he stayed in Radzin, and in July he was seriously shot by Polish partisans. He was taken to hospital, first in Lubartów. It's a small town between Radzin and Lublin, then in Legnica in Silesia region. And in November 1944, he was sent to further service in the police in Augsburg, in his hometown. And there he spent the rest of the war. And at the end of May 1945, he was interned in a camp near Ludwigsburg, but spent there not so long time and was released as a not important Nazi officer. And in 1953, he was accepted into the ranks of Augsburg Schutzpolizei, so he went back to his work in police. And almost 20 years after the war, he was spent a normal, quiet life as a citizen, as a policeman, But in 1963, Josef Bürger was arrested and was detained until May 1966. But then he was another time released. But German justice still worked on him, collected testimonies and collecting the whole material against him to be enough to accuse him, and his trial started in 1970. And Bürger pleaded not guilty to the charges against him, but he only confirmed that during his service in Radzin he was involved in various office jobs and fighting the Polish underground. But he claimed he had nothing to do with Jewish matters and only occasionally carried out minor orders from his superior, e.g. he delivered written instructions to the Judenrat in Łuków. Of course, this was lies, but he hoped that there were no witnesses, no evidences against him, but it was not true. Many people testified against him and accused him, and the court examined whether Bürger's personality allowed him to commit so horrible murders of the Jews, and questioned psychologists, relatives of him, and many of his associates. And from these testimonies emerged the image of an inconspicuous, quiet, hardworking man, strongly connected with his parents, siblings. But according to the expert and the court, these features did not exclude the possibility of participation with the crimes, and he indeed did that. All these crimes. Josef Bürger was charged with a total of 18 criminal acts, of which his responsibility for 7 of them was proved in the course of court proceedings, and in the case of another 11, according to the court, there was insufficient evidences to attribute them to him. So he was released in this respect from guilt. But these 7 of crimes was enough to judge him and to sentence him to life, and he was imprisoned, and 5 years. He sentenced to life imprisonment and 5 years of disqualification for committing committing 10 murders, as I said. He was found guilty of deaths of 8 people known by name and 2 unknown people, and acquitted of the remaining crimes. And Josef Bürger was serving his sentence in the Bavarian town of Straubing till 1985, when he was granted parole from prison. The prosecutor's office in Düsseldorf filed a complaint against this, but the case did not progress further due to the death of the criminal, of Josef Bürger. He died on April 2nd, 1986 in the hospital of St. Elizabeth in Straubing. In archive in Berlin, I have found very important materials about him. Among them, these photographs of Josef Bürger. These are this is the first public presentation of his face. We can see how he looked out. We can see, as psychologists said, we could say that he was not a monster, not a someone incredible, horrible man, but we can say normal, even we can say nice man. But this normal, nice looking man was a horrible murder. He shot Jews with cold blood. Among them, among people shot by him was, for example, Rachel Flug, the 16 years old girl. He shot straight in his face. We know that from one of testimonies about his murders and crimes he committed. So now we know much more about this guy, this man who was, we can say, a chief German supervisor of the Łuków ghetto. We know all details about his life, his service in Nazi various ranks, and we can see his face for the first time after the war. Now he's not someone called Josef Bürger. This is the person we can say many details about him and see how he looked from these pictures. That's why I thought that is worth of presentation and to enable many people interested in Holocaust in Łuków to get more information about this person, till now known only from his name and surname. Nothing more was known about him till now. Now we can present the whole his life and service and horrible role he played during Holocaust in Łuków. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Krzysztof, for a very interesting lecture and for the first time to get to know the person who behind horrors. And on the surface, it looks like a simple man, but as we know more and more, we see how cruel and evil he was. Thank you again. And I did not mention that if you have any questions, you can write in the chat in the end of the 3 lectures, then we will have a discussion. Thank you. Our second lecture will deliver Professor Stephan Lehnstaedt, Professor for Holocaust Studies and Jewish Studies at Touro College, Berlin. In 2015, he received the medal Uprising the Warsaw Ghetto from the Polish Association of Jewish Fighters during World War II. Lehnstaedt is associated member of the Zelma Stern Zentrum for Jewish Studies, Berlin, Brandenburg, and serves on the Academic Advisors Board of the Museum of Warsaw Ghetto. He published many books and articles. Subject of lecture today is based on the article, and the subject is In Search of the Victim's Agenda, German Scholarship on Polish Jews during the Holocaust. The floor is yours, Stephan.
Thank you, Leah, for the kind introduction and for having me here. You already mentioned my title, so I will speak about the fact that in Germany, the Holocaust was not a topic for a long time because it was associated with unpleasant questions about collective and individual responsibility. Historians therefore dealt with their own versus the Jewish history, which was perceived as foreign, and they isolated Jewish history from German history, despite the obvious interdependencies, especially during the Holocaust. And it was not until the 1990s that substantial Holocaust research emerged in Germany, initially focusing on the crimes and the perpetrators in the East. In recent years, Jewish history in Eastern Europe during the Holocaust is receiving more attention, and scholarship is internationally connectable. With the Silent Heroes Memorial in Berlin, there is now even a place prominently dedicated to the self-rescue of Jews. My talk today thus will be about a German, Polish, Jewish topic. For a large part, that's obviously what the Holocaust was. And even after the war, tens of thousands of Holocaust survivors from Poland lived in DP camps in occupied Germany, then the Allied occupation of Germany. It was those Holocaust survivors who published the first studies and eyewitness accounts of the Holocaust and on Jewish resistance on German soil. And of course, this was not aimed at an academic and especially not at a German audience, but it was for, say, internal use only. It was the Association of Persecutees of the Nazi regime that produced the first German publication on Jewish resistance. And I know this is the slide is somehow not very good, the photo. It's Zivia Lubetkin's account of the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. It was a small pamphlet on cheap paper, but the print run must have been several thousand, if not tens of thousands. In Germany too, then, Warsaw 1943 was the beginning of any engagement with Jewish resistance. The symbolic significance of this publication is high, and certainly it found its readers, but it did not establish a serious exploration of the subject. And it's probably hardly surprising that Germans after 1945 have paid less attention to Jewish resistance than to German resistance. And in the end, the respective narratives of resistance are nationally dominated. The German case, however, has some distinctive features within academic historiography, and indeed for decades there was a sometimes sharp rejection of Jewish resistance and even of Jewish agenda during the Holocaust, both as an object of study and as a historical phenomenon. In West Germany at the time, historiography on National Socialism was limited primarily to politologically inspired studies on the failure of the Weimar Republic and the structural shaping of National Socialism, and thus, by and large, ignored the Holocaust for almost 30 years. In the German Democratic Republic in East Germany, a Marxist-influenced historical science developed which intentionally shortened Nazi history by essential elements, most notably the specific victimhood of racial persecution. Interestingly, however, the first major German study on Jewish resistance was a cross-border cooperation. Its main author was Helmut Eschwege, born in Hanover in 1913. He was a German Jew and he had migrated to Palestine in the 1930s, but returned to East Germany after the war. As a convinced communist, he struggled with real existing socialism throughout his life. He had to endure several party expulsions, and although he had already been a historian since 1952, he was unable to officially practice his profession as a historian for most of his life in Eastern Germany. His pioneering study, which he published together with the West German historian Konrad Kwiet, who had been teaching in Australia since 1978 was this book that you can see here. With it, Eschwege and Quiet moved in an international field of research to which the concept of Amida corresponded in Israel, but which above all had a counterpart in a meanwhile broad and nuanced study of resistance in Germany, that is, German resistance. In particular, the notion of Resistenz, the German term resistance, should be mentioned here, which can perhaps be translated into English best as resilience. It was developed, this concept was developed largely at the Munich Institute of Contemporary History, and the term means something like an attitude of refusal in everyday life, such as not giving the Hitler salute, insisting on traditions of non-national, national socialist milieus, and so on. So it actually comes rather close to the idea, the concept of Amida. German historians at the time were actually enthusiastic about researching everyday life under Nazi rule, and the concept of resilience stemmed not last from large-scale projects on the subject. In these projects, efforts were made to access new sources and perspectives beyond the conventional tradition of using just and only state records. This would have been a fundamental prerequisite for research into Jewish resistance as well, which by necessity could not, or mostly could not, document its own activities at the time, because records would simply have been suicidal in the event of discovery. But German historians rejected the extensive Jewish memoir literature. They rejected oral history that emerged after 1945. German scholars also did not deal with Jewish resistance because it was not very spectacular in Germany. And it did not result in revolts lasting several weeks, in mass escapes or assassinations, as was the case in Eastern Europe and particularly in occupied Poland. In view of these acts in Eastern Europe, and also in view of the totality of the Holocaust, even the small community of survivors in Germany often regarded their own acts of resistance as modest. But of course, the resistance fighters were persecuted too, and the millions who died were by no means passive. This, then, is also the argument of the most comprehensive German language account of Jewish resistance to date, which is from the year 1994, and its author was the Holocaust survivor Arno Lustiger, born in 1924 in Benjin. And he took a very inclusive approach, and I quote, "Every survivor is a witness to resistance, because if the Nazis had had their way, no Jew would have survived the war." Lustiger's documentary study can be characterized as popular science, but it's absolutely respectable and very impressive in its comprehensive approach that includes all of Europe with a major focus on Poland. However, Lustiger had entered a territory that academic historians were not willing to share. Their treatment of survivor scholars had always been exclusionary. They had defamed their approach and rejected the books they produced, even when researchers like Josef Wolf limited themselves to commenting on perpetrator sources. And this kind of rejection now also hit Lustiger. In the 1990s, however, a change in the perception of the Holocaust began in Germany, as elsewhere. Perpetrator studies, which are widely perceived as an influential research phenomenon, turned out to be a prominent development in Germany. Wolfgang Schäffler, who as a postdoc had been one of the official German observers of the Eichmann trial in Jerusalem, may be considered the father of this school of research in Germany. Among his students were several prominent historians, and in this circle a kind of forensic turn in Holocaust research emerged. which, however, and this is a central misunderstanding, this circle was much less interested in perpetrator psychology or the origin of the perpetrators, but mostly in a highly precise and dense description of the actual deeds in Eastern Europe and the identification of those responsible for the crimes. So the historical narrative had to be, as it were, court-proof. And indeed, this is where Scheffler came from. He worked as a witness for German criminal courts for decades. So an important school of research, but not at all about the victims and their agenda. And the Scheffler school was mainly frequented by men. And here a gender bias can be observed in German Holocaust research. Those who were interested in perpetrators and the crimes were mainly male historians. And those who were interested in victims, in Jewish life and Jewish actions, were mostly female historians. Significantly, the pioneering study in Germany on Jewish actions did not come from the field of academic research, but from the feminist Ingrid Strobel. She published a book on Jewish women in the resistance in Poland and Western Europe in the late 1990s. And she based this on extensive interviews. And she was also concerned with female empowerment and used the example of Jewish fighters only for, well, for in parts at least for political reasons. And she was only peripherally interested in the racist persecution and the racial persecution of her heroines. So the overall tendency to widen the view on Jewish life and resistance during the Holocaust led, in combination with archives accessible now in Eastern Europe, to some remarkable German studies in the last 20 years that were not influenced by political disputes. The pioneering German study in the field of Jewish life during the Holocaust was by Andrea Löw, who analyzed the living condition, self-perception, and behavior of Jews in the Litzmannstadt ghetto in 2006. Public interest in life in Jewish ghettos also grew in those years, and which is why Löw, together with Markus Roth, was able to publish 2 more excellent popular science books on self-assertion in the ghettos of Warsaw and Krakow. Moreover, a legal development was of particular importance for the academic discourse in Germany, and that is the so-called ghetto pensions. With this law passed in 2002, Jewish workers from the Nazi ghettos were to receive pensions from the German pension insurance. The prerequisites for receiving these payments were, on the one hand, a payment received back then in return for work in a ghetto, and food also being considered as payment. And on the other hand, the so-called own decision of will, that is, one's own decision to work, which is in contrast to forced labor, where one has to work under the threat of direct violence. This legal construction, which was mainly used because Germany did not want to pay monthly pensions to the millions of actual forced laborers, this legal construction led to the grotesque situation that survivors as claimants now emphasized their agenda, their room for maneuver in the ghettos, while at the same time the German pension insurance, and with it many courts, referred to the totality of the Holocaust and considered agency as virtually non-existent. During the long legal battles, many historians worked as expert witnesses for German social courts and dealt with Jewish agency in great depth. And thus, in the last roughly 10 years, several important titles on ghettos in Poland have been published, in which not only Jewish agenda, but also resistance play an important role. This is exemplified by 2 very different studies on the Tarnow ghetto, which on the one hand portray Jewish life within the German extermination policy, and on the other hand, in the Polish-Jewish relationship in a long-term perspective, and thus they contextualize them differently once again. There's a book on Izbica, which is devoted in a very original way to a ghetto that is significantly smaller. Other studies take on sensitive issues such as crime and justice in ghettos. And last but not least, the Munich Institute of Contemporary History launched a project dealing with privateness under National Socialism, which, as a matter of course, included a study on the private sphere in ghettos. And in the last years, even Aktion Reinhardt, that is, murder in the death camps of Belgrade, Sobibor, and Treblinka, received some attention. All of this, and now we'll come to my conclusion, is a double broadening of a perspective. First, geographically, with a view to the East and in particular to Poland. And secondly, because the Jewish perspective and above all Jewish actions in and against the Holocaust are now systematically taken into account. Thus, Holocaust research in Germany is no longer just German, like the Schaffner School, but it operates in international academic contexts. And also relevant for the German scholarly landscape is the fact that Jewish agenda and Jewish resistance are apparently female topics. In a figurative sense, this observation probably also applies to the academic landscape in Germany, because with their masculine and at the same time German topics, some of Schaffler's students have made it to respectable professorships in the German-speaking world. Most of the other important studies by female scholars did not lead to comparable academic careers. And it should also point it out that Holocaust history in Germany is currently much less extensive than that on forms of Holocaust representation and cultures of remembrance after 1945. So we're much more dealing with the after history of the Holocaust than with the actual history of the Holocaust. And this is reflected not least in teaching. A study by Free University Berlin showed that 1 in 5 German universities offered only one or actually no class on the years from 1933 to 1945 within 4 semesters. I'm not talking about the Holocaust, I'm talking about National Socialism, 1933 to 1945. However, almost twice as many courses were offered on the aftermath of National Socialism and genocide, the history after 1935. Thank you very much.
Wow, thank you very much for a really amazing lecture and interesting and many thoughts about what the subject that you raised here, because there are so many, the female and the feminine, the masculine, who is researching what, and especially how it is represented, the Jewish story, the Jewish resilience, the Jewish heroism among Polish Jews in Germany. So it's really something unique that people don't deal with it, and it opens for us really a new point of view. And Katarzyna, you are here. Katarzyna, we talked about unique subjects. Here we have a unique subject to take the heroism, maybe the Jewish story, and in Poland, how it is represented in Poland, in Germany, and in Israel. So Stephan, we can make here a special seminar only for this subject. So we have lots of work to do. Thank you.
Definitely, yeah, good idea.
Thank you. We will have the time to discuss after the last lecture. So last lecture is Hana Oren. Hana is the MA student in Haifa University in Polish and East Europe Studies. She's writing a thesis about Jewish summer camp after the war in Poland, under the supervision of Professor Marcus Zilber. Since 2008, she has been working at the Mashmaut Center, who all of you know, and I'm proud in Hana. She's working as a teacher and a mentor. She conducts workshops and seminars about Holocaust and Jewish heritage for students, soldiers, and Polish students and teachers to whom she speaks Polish. Subject of her lecture, March 1968, the last chapter in the history of Polish Jews, reflection and representation on the events of March 1968 in Polish film. Hana, the floor is yours. You're on mute. You are on still mute, Hana?
Yes, I know.
Okay.
I'm trying to how to find out I'm sharing my presentation when it's open so you can see the slides going in. A second, sorry. But somehow now it doesn't.
חנה, תגדילי אצלך, תסגרי ותשתפי שוב פעם, כמו שהיינו עושים.
אני יודעת, אבל זה לא מצליח לי, זה הקטע.
Just a second, we are patient, no problem. Just a second. אז תעשי רגיל, אם זה לא מסתדר אז רגיל.
הנה, הפעם האחרונה אני מנסה. בתקווה שזה מעביר לי את השקופיות. טוב, אין לי ברירה. אוקיי. I will do...
אבל אנחנו בכלל לא רואים, לא עשית share בכלל.
לא, אני יודעת, עכשיו אני אעשה share, זהו.
So.
אוקיי. So, I hope it... Do you see it?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So unfortunately, I don't know why it doesn't work. Usually it does. My article deals with how Jewish and Polish identities and generational gap were presented during the March of 1968 events that occurred in Poland in 3 Polish feature films released after the fall of the communism regime. In my lecture, I will present shortly some of those representations. I chose to write about the subject because of my personal connection. The event of March 1968 in Poland affected my family and my life, even though I was born after. As I grew up, my curiosity arose about the subject that diverted my family's life to the path on which I was born. The story begins with my grandparents, Holocaust survivor, who chose Polish identity over the Jewish identity already before World War II, when they gave up the Jewish religious lifestyle they were born into and joined the Communist Party. Where they found their new home, or as I defined it, their new religion. After the war, they were integrated into position intended for party members only. The wave of Jewish immigration in 1957, encouraged by the Polish government, did not affect my grandparents, who saw Poland as their home and stayed there together with another 20 to 25,000 Jews. My parents, who were born after the war, and although they grew up with communist parents, participated in Jewish summer camp, and were aware of their Jewish identity. And as teenagers, even joined the Jewish club named Bubble in Warsaw. When the student demonstration broke out in 1968, my parents also participated. After that, they were deported with their parents from Poland and found themselves in Israel. I chose to analyze 2 parameters, the generation gap and the Polish Jewish identity, in 3 feature films produced after the fall of the communists. Because such popular culture genre are intended more than any other to attract a wider audience looking for leisure and pleasure, especially among the younger generation that wasn't born yet during this period. Thus, they exposed a larger audience to the subject. I will start with a few historical facts. Since 1967, around the 6 Days War, under the influence of the Soviet Union and the influence of internal political struggle, evil spirits began to blow in the Communist Party against the Polish citizens with Jewish roots. This struggle arose with the students' demonstration in 1968 against the government's censorship of culture and academia.
תזיזי את השקופיות.
Oh, sorry. The climax of the struggle between the communist government and the regime reformists was the decision to stop the play Jadi for Father's Eve at the Polish State Theater in Warsaw. The play, written in the 19th century by the poet Adam Mickiewicz, deals with the struggle between bad and good guys when the Tsarist Russia represents the force of the evil. The show's message caused discomfort among the Communist Party leaders, who worried about the rebellious ideas that could arise among the viewers and feared the reaction of the Soviet leadership in Moscow. The censorship brought up big demonstrations and mainly led by university students, including my parents. Following the events, on March 19, 1968, Władysław Gomułka, the president of Poland, accused the demonstrators collaborating with revisionists, the political Zionist party, of undermining Poland, which led to an explosion campaign against the Jews. After that, between 12 to 15,000 Jews had to leave Poland. Most left for countries such as Sweden, Denmark, and the United States, and approximately 3,000 immigrated to Israel. As I mentioned, I only checked how those films presented Jewish and Polish identity and the generational gap. Now we'll show a few examples of both issues. The first movie, Martzo Migdawi, came out in 1990, just after the fall of the communist regime in Poland. The film's plot reflects the period events through the eyes of 11th grade students in the town of Ljubljana, a provincial town in Poland, who try to live their own lives For the students, romantic and family dramas, dreams about the future, and parties with friends are more critical than political issues invading their world. The gap between generation appears almost at the beginning of the film. The reaction between the 11th grade graders and the educational staff to the friendship train coming from Czechoslovakia, going through Ljubljana without stopping, bring a discussion about the truth being interpreted differently by youngsters compared to the adults. When the school headmaster asked Tomek, the students who photographed the event at the train station, to write an article for the school newspaper, Tomek confronts her about the fact that the train didn't stop in their town. With a bit of an anger, the headmaster insists that it did stop, as written in the newspaper, the worker's voice, showing him the article, and she said, "You have to look beyond the facts." In this film, the issue of Polish Jewish identity occurs when the same headmaster tells her students Zionists are bad Jews, implying the existence of good Jews. However, the distinguishing between good and bad Jews remains unclear, and this ambiguity influenced conversation between students sent during school to a Communist Party demonstration. While they choose to demonstrate a demonstration sign to hold, they discuss who are bad Poles and good Poles without understanding the criteria for such categorization beyond being Jewish, wondering if they know someone who is a Zionist. All that without knowing that one of them is a Jew and might be considered a Zionist as the movie continues. The students take advantage of the demonstration to engage in social matters that are more important for them, such as the smell of their classmates' hair standing in front of them, instead of listening to the speeches given by adults. The second movie I will present is the historical drama Majid 68, which was released 2 years ago in 2022. Although he is a new film, he is very similar to the film Marzov Migdal, which was produced in 1990. The plot of the film is about two young lovers, Hana and Janek, students from Warsaw University, taking part in the Youth demonstration in 1968. They are young, madly in love with each other, and like in Shakespeare's drama Romeo and Juliet, their families are both on both sides of March barricade in a country overwhelmed by rebellion. The generation gap is represented by relationship between Janek and his parents and their values. The parents admire everything Communist Party says and does, even if it means destroying the relationship with their son, who, like many other young students around him, Jews and non-Jews, dares to check various statements that are presented as facts on various topics and demand freedom of speech and creativity. We see Janek take part in students' demonstration against the communist regime, which his father, Colonel Roman Volitsky, a senior officer within the Secret Service, tries to suppress because he believes they have no justification because of his rule in the Secret Service. We get a glimpse of this intergenerational gap through Janek's conversation with his parents about school and the future, and more than all about his girlfriend, Hana. The most challenging argument occurs when Janek and Roman return after Janek is released from political arrest. It reaches to a severe intensity, including physical violence, until Janek feels he is no longer capable of tolerating his father's value and tells his father, "I'm not like you," and leaves the house with no intention of returning there. The film presents difficulties of understanding the Polish and Jewish identity from several angles. From the Jewish side, represented by Jerzy Bielski, Hana's father, a director of surgical department in our hospital, who was fired from his job due to a rumor that he organized a celebration to commemorate the victory of Israel over the Arabs, even though it was a toast to his assistant's PhD. Jerzy Bielski can't understand why this happened to him. From the Polish angle, we see that in a conversation between Colonel Volitsky and his wife Julia, he tells her that Hana's father was dismissed from his job because he is a Zionist, and emphasized he is a Jew. Despite having an access to his secret police file, Volitsky can't offer any other reason for accusation against Hana's father besides his Jewish roots, although he changed his surname and married a non-Jewish woman. In fact, there was no proof that he had any connection to Zionism. The third movie, Róžička, Little Rose, was produced in 2010. The movie deals with the Polish Jewish identity and the educational gap instead of the generational gap, as in other films. The movie plot shows the secret police in those times under tremendous pressure from the party leaders to find the people inciting against the Communist Party and its values and attract the masses to the streets against her. The issue of the Polish identity in the movie arose from the reaction Roman got from his superior in the secret service after he failed in the mission that made him sacrifice his love for his girlfriend Camilla. He recruits her to romantically get close to Adam Warshawski, a literature professor in Warsaw University, so she can find out the extent of his involvement in the organization of resistance to the government and who his partners are. The plan fails when she falls in love with Adam. Roman is accused by his superiors of failing the mission only because he is a Jew. His original surname is Rosen. When he tries to defend himself, his superior yells at him loudly, Rosen. We'll show half a minute of that.
Towarzyszu kapitanie Rożek!
A może należałoby powiedzieć, panie kapitanie Rosen, co? Słuchajcie, Rosen, nie dość, że zniszczyliście jedną z naszych najlepszych agentur, to jeszcze oszukaliście przełożonych w sprawie swojego pochodzenia. I kto tu przeszedł na wrogie pozycje, Rosen?
Towarzysze.
Rosen! The shout echoing his Jewish surname, which he gave up, emphasized the failure of the mission due to the fact that he has Jewish roots. Unlike the other two films, the filmmaker Wojcicka emphasized the educational gap rather than the generation gap in relation to the communist regime. Adam and his university friends gather in a meeting thinking of way to bypass the censorship of communist regime. The age of the participant is very diverse. There are young people and old lecturers. Summary. Many Polish films deals with Polish-Jewish relations, most of them about the period of the Holocaust. The fact that 3 feature films were made by creators who were teenagers in Poland in 1968, years after the events occurred, and as they testify in various interviews, that this period had a significant impact on their lives, indicating that the difficulty for Poles in dealing with the events, the difficulty of the Poles to deal with the events of the period. Investigating the issue of Polish-Jewish identity promotes the reflection on the consequence of prejudice, discrimination, and political manipulation, which remained really relevant to this day, and now even more than ever. Looking back on the relationship between Poles and Jews, we will notice that just as the murder of the Polish Jews during the Holocaust was placed on Germans, the blame on the events of March 1968 was placed on the Communist Party actions toward the Polish Jews. In my opinion, there is a need for an open and transparent discourse after a real investigation of the period's event between two sides to ensure that it will never happen again. For the sake of fairness, I will have to admit that even in the state of Israel, the events of Polish Jews had in 1968 are hardly discussed, probably because of the low number of Jews who arrived here then. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hana, for a really interesting lecture that brings us so many thoughts and points to discuss. And it summarized what we opened. Like Magdalena said in the beginning, we have to discuss, we have to teach and to bring for an open dialogue, especially in these days, especially after the 7th of October. And this really summarized all our meeting. And this is the time we have some minutes to questions and thoughts. It was really fascinating. 3 lectures, very short, but people that are interested to know more, they can read it in the book. Yes, questions. Yes.
I have a question, maybe not exactly the question, but kind of a reflection on lectures of Professor Lehnstaedt. It's very sad what you said, that the same researchers, I mean the same people, German, researching on Holocaust, but from different perspectives, and that the female researchers didn't get so much career in academia as the male researchers on the subject. Why is that? What do you think? That focusing on victims is, I don't know, not popular, not creative, or just they dealing as a moms more, they are more focused on different aspects of lives?
Well, I mean, we would have to look at each individual case, obviously, but in general, this is largely due to the German academic system, where we have, I mean, tenured positions is at the level of professor and not below. So we don't have something like assistant professor, associate professor, or the like, or the Polish system where you start at an adjunct, and then when you continue publishing, you will eventually become professor. So you'll have to apply for a professorship, and then they have a professorship for German history. And here you can say, well, I mean, look, I'm dealing with German perpetrators, with Nazis. It's obviously German history. But when you argue, well, I'm dealing with Jews in Eastern Europe, in Poland, then they will say, well, it's not a professorship of German history. It's a professorship, if at all, of Eastern European history. We have, I think, 2 or 3 professorships of Jewish history. And here they are not interested in the Holocaust, because they say, well, this is Holocaust studies. Like, I mean, difference between Jewish studies and Holocaust studies is not just in Germany, but it's probably a worldwide phenomenon. So they are referred to Eastern European history, and the Eastern European historians say, well, but we are not dealing with Jewish history. And so they don't fit into any pattern that would allow for a professorship. And that's so if you want to do something, you really have to write this is also typical for the German system. You have to write a second book that has a completely different topic, like another era, another geographical focus, and another subject. And then you can say, well, okay, but my second book might fit.
Mm-hmm. It's really, if we look at the future, it's really scaring that you mentioned that there are more books or researchers after 1945, and not what you call the hardcore of the Holocaust, of the history.
Yeah, that really is troublesome. I mean, you might be aware that in Germany there's only one master program dedicated to the Holocaust. That is at Touro University in Berlin, and we are an offshore campus of a private American Jewish university. So no German state university offers a program on the Holocaust, which is,
wow,
it's a shame, actually.
Really?
And so at universities, and we're looking here, I mean, like, we have many universities in Germany, and obviously there is no need for every university to have a Holocaust program, certainly not. But the thing is that, I mean, we have the Holocaust, we have National Socialism, and all this is very German. I mean, it's a German topic, right? And these universities, they educate our teachers. So basically, we have young people studying who want to become a history teacher. And at the university, they don't even have the possibility to attend a class on National Socialism. I mean, it's not that we can force them to do it, which is, I mean, fair enough. But even if they are interested they often find it difficult to take a class in it. And then at the same time, our politicians obviously complain that, oh, it's so important to know something about National Socialism. Pupils have to learn about it, and, you know, raising anti-Semitism, right-wing extremism, and so on, which is all very true. But the thing is, I mean, our teachers, many of them are not educated at universities, and so if they want to do it, they basically have to educate them on themselves on their own, by their own, and that is a problem. I mean, that really is a problem.
Real problem.
And it means that in reality, if I may, it means that our memorials, and we have a lot of memorials, that is basically their job to educate our pupils, which works, but which is hardly efficient if the pupils are not prepared. If they go to a memorial and they have not dealt with it in school previously, then it will, and it's all completely new at the memorial, then the visit there, they will not really profit from it.
That's very interesting what you're saying, because it's a kind of pattern of politics after the war of Germany. When I was in Bonn, there was a Geschichte Museum or sowas. And at that time, it was a few years ago, as a young woman, I was shocked that we starting the, I forgot the Ausstellung, exhibition. We're starting with the gas chamber, and they said it's kind of, they wanted to create as a kind of real feeling in the gas chamber. And the next, there was a huge part of Germany after war, about the women they worked after war because there was no man and so on. So the part of the history regarding the not just the Holocaust, but the Second World War was a tiny part, like really tiny part. And I was surprised that, of course, every perpetrator don't want to be called all the time out.
Yeah, but I think, I mean, you're probably talking about Haus der Geschichte in Bonn, and the thing is, yeah, I mean, it's a museum on Germany after 1945. So for them, this is the history before 1945 is just a starting point. I think this is, I mean, it's a choice you make. You can't display all the German history, like when to start, when to end. They say, well, we're talking about the German state we're currently living in, and it starts 1945. And there is obviously a history before 1945, but we'll keep it short. This
however,
I think is fair. I mean, we have a House of German, we have the German Historical Museum here in Berlin, which deals with all of German history since the last 1,000 years. And there we have a large part on the Holocaust and so on. So this I would not really criticize.
They don't start direct after 1945. They starting in the war because they showing the gas chamber.
They show it as a prologue, so to speak.
Yes, every museum has his agenda, has his story. A museum wants to tell the story, and you can see different kind of.
Yeah, but it's very interesting what you're saying and how I saw that at that time, and I was like, oh, okay.
Yes. So you see, we have so many subjects to deal with, and this is our book. Maybe it's a start of something to do together, you know, Israel, Poland, Germany, and to unite forces and to write something new and unique. And I think that also the subject that we raise here with Krzysztof, with the figure of Josef Bürger, and the subject that Hana brought here with the 1968 events, which is almost not far away from the history, and now it is represented in films after the fall of the communism. Those are really subjects that brings us new point of view, and I don't know how much they are implemented in the societies. So our goals, I think, it's to expose those subjects and to bring them to the young generation, and to think how we do more, how we make this accessible, these subjects, make them accessible not only in the academic field, but also to take them to the education field, to the students, to the pupils, to the teachers, and that's it.
And I think, Leah, you are actually doing a great job here, because you kind of introduced Tamir Hot to me, or the other way around. You introduced me to Tamir Hot, who is also often a participant here. And we now, since 1 year, we now have a joint seminar in Israel and Germany. Right. And this is a seminar on the dealing with the past in Germany and in Israel, and we compare it, and we do it on Zoom with his students and my students. And I think this is one of the great results of this forum, and I'm extremely grateful to you. Thank you.
I'm happy, and I hope we will have maybe more with new initiatives and to do so. So Magdalena is apologizing. Thank you again for inviting me. It was great to hear the lectures. Special thanks to Hana for reminding me the film Rozhitchka. I need to watch it again, this time from a different perspective. I need to say goodbye and rush to another meeting. So thank you all. And I think also the films, now we want to see them. To see them.
I really recommend to see them. All three of them are very good.
Another perspective. And thank you very much. And I hope you will get the books. They will send it to everyone to his address. And we will meet next time in May. I will send you the details. Thank you. Everything is recorded. So if someone wants to watch it again, I will send the link. Thank you very much. Good evening. And
thank you.
See you soon.
Krzysztof, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Rachel. Bye.
See you soon.
Bye.
Krzysztof, do you have any